YouTube? Boy here. So today I want to talk about Luffy versus Zoro. And so guys, longtime subscribers will know I've actually done this video before. I know we're not talking about who is stronger, Luffy or Zoro. I don't care. Although I would say Luffy is probably stronger given he's the main hero of the story, but Zoro is also incredibly strong. But that's not really of concern to me. I really think that at some point in the future of the story, Luffy and Zoro may actually fight. Or even if they don't fight, I think that Zoro will, in the future specifically, Wano, temporarily leave the crew. But this will not actually be a repeat of the theory that I did before, because again, as longtime subscribers will know, specifically those who visit the comment section, I pinned a comment from user Whitebeard Fanboy, who essentially had the same theory as me that Zoro would at some point in time leave the crew, but he approached it from a different angle and a better angle, which I acknowledged even at the time that he posted the comment. But anyway guys, it's time to finally make an actual video discussing his take. And guys, this will be a must-watch theory. The evidence is extremely persuasive. Now, it doesn't mean you will leave this video absolutely believing it, but you should leave this video absolutely believing in the possibility of it. And I know this topic is extremely contentious. I expect dislikes just by the title alone. I expect dislikes after the few seconds of watching it, and I expect people to watch the entire video and rage in the comment section because they are Zoro fans. They don't see it happening. There have been many crew members that have left in the past, specifically Robin and Usopp and Sanji in Whole Cake Island, and to some people it's getting repetitive, but I don't think so. And regardless of my own personal preference, the details in the story are leading in that particular direction. But anyway guys, ranting side setup aside, let's actually get into it. And so guys, to understand this theory, you really have to combine several scenes spaced throughout the course of the One Piece story. But the earliest signs, the real setup for this, I believe, dates back to the Water 7 and Enies Lobby arc. And the biggest piece of evidence specifically focuses at the end of the Enies Lobby arc. After, as you know, Usopp left the crew, he tried to return back to the crew at the end of the arc. And Luffy has this to say: "Wow, good to know. Let's go fetch him immediately." And Nami and Chopper are in agreement, but Zoro is not. Zoro says, "Wait up guys, I won't let anyone go and fetch him." Whatever the thoughts were in Luffy's and Usopp's arguments, and no matter who was correct, as long as the two decided to fight, the outcome was entrusted to the match. In the end, he lost and left us. Listen guys, even though he's a big idiot, he's our captain. It's better not to have someone who cannot pay due respect to him as part of the crew. A crew's captain who has lost his dignity will surely collapse. It's none of my business that you usually joke around, but if you humiliate yourself yet still want to claim any pretense of being my leader, then I will be the one to leave the crew. And then later he says this: "Is leaving the crew such a simple thing? In the future, there's no way that we can trust a guy who does such a thing on a whim. We aren't playing pirates like kids here." And so guys, why is all of this significant? Why does this lead me to believe that at some point in the future Zoro may leave the crew? And there's a lot of arguments to be made, but let's start off with the most incredibly obvious thing, which is that Zoro said that if Luffy humiliated himself and still claims to be his leader, then Zoro will leave the crew. This is oh so typical foreshadowing Oda usually likes to place in the story to set up future events. The fact that even Zoro said this in the first place should put up red flags. And he also says that is leaving the crew such a simple thing. Zoro places a huge weight on people leaving the crew. And this has a lot of significance with the recent events in the story, because for the first time in a very long time, a Straw Hat actually attempted to leave the crew, and that would be Sanji. And Sanji understands Zoro's perspective, it seems, more than anyone else, because he says as much in the Water 7 arc, and again he says this in the Whole Cake Island arc. When listing the reasons why he could not return to the crew, one of the most important reasons, in fact the very first reason, was this. Sanji said, "I disrespected and injured my own captain to the best of my ability, despite the fact that you came here to save me. This is why I no longer have the right to return to your ship." Nami also said very shortly after this, "I'll never forgive you." And some might say, well, it's pretty clear Nami has forgiven him at this point in time. And I want to clarify here, Nami wants him to return to the ship. She likes Sanji. But she said specifically that she's going to put it behind her for the time being. So I don't think that Nami at this point in time has really yet to forgive Sanji. The point that Sanji and Zoro are making here is that it is a big deal to leave the crew. They view it as far bigger deal than us in the community, and Nami specifically found Sanji's actions to be atrocious and unforgivable. And guys, straight up, I wonder, and I think you should wonder, how Zoro would feel about it if he knew. And so to answer this question, I think you would need to delve into Zoro's psyche, look at the details within the story which sort of explain Zoro's perspective. And we'll start with his words from after the time skip, specifically in the Punk Hazard arc. I talked about this in a theory post recently that I specifically said that would tie into this post if you've caught on to that. But essentially after Luffy got defeated by Caesar who they were stronger than, Zoro basically told Luffy to get his act together, that they are in the new world, and if they lose to Caesar, how are they possibly going to defeat a Yonko? Zoro is essentially asking Luffy to take things seriously. One small slip-up could cost everyone their lives. And what's hugely ironic about this is immediately after Zoro said this, Luffy agreed with him, and then went on to continue to not take things seriously. I honestly could not find all of the stupid things that Luffy has done after this point in time. Continue to take the new world as though it was a game, as though it was just fun. But all of these examples fall short to the huge mistake which was Luffy's attempt to rescue Sanji in Whole Cake Island, specifically invading the territory of the Yonko Big Mom, while the Straw Hats were currently engaged with another Yonko in Kaido. This rescue mission, although within Luffy's character, was just straight up not smart. It is a miracle that they are probably going to survive and make it out alive. Luffy and crew were defeated not once, but twice. In the Zou arc, Zoro literally could not even hold back his frustration at Luffy's plans. He wanted them to think about it rationally. They had already targeted and enraged the Yonko Kaido. They could not and would not be able to fight two Yonkos at the same time. They had set up these intricately laid plans to take down Kaido, and their time was limited. There just wasn't time available to go chasing after Sanji. Zoro thought that they just had to let Sanji deal with his own problems. And this leads into one of the most curious and ominous scenes in the story so far, that again throws up huge red flags to the future relationship of Zoro and Luffy, which is that Luffy was talking to Peckham's, essentially learning about Sanji's situation, about how potentially the life of his mentor Zeph was in danger, how the marriage essentially removed Sanji from their crew. And when it was all done, Luffy is running out of the room, and Zoro says this, "Hold your horses, Straw Hat." And then Luffy says, "Zoro, you were here? Did you hear all of that just now?" And Zoro said that he did. Luffy then goes on to say, "You're probably all worried about Sanji, aren't you?" And Zoro says, "Don't make me kick your ass. I told you to leave that idiot alone." And of course, as we know, Luffy didn't. The fact that Zoro was not okay with the rescue Sanji operation and Luffy went on to do it regardless of his opinion by itself could cause controversy. But you add on the fact that Sanji did officially leave the crew for some time and disrespected his captain only makes this far worse. When you read the lines between Sanji and Luffy, when Luffy escapes the seducing woods and meets him, I don't think you can interpret it in any other way than Sanji was attempting to humiliate Straw Hat Luffy. That he wasn't showing his captain the due respect that he deserved. And in allowing Sanji to do this to him, Luffy might be interpreted as having lost his dignity. And by putting himself in danger, essentially staying in one spot, accepting his death if Sanji didn't return, he put the entire crew in danger. I chose my words very carefully here because having lost his self-respect, Sanji having not shown him respect, and by Sanji attempting to humiliate and probably successfully humiliating Luffy, then at this point in time, Zoro not only said that he would leave the crew, but he said the crew itself is destined to collapse. Zoro even said this in the Water 7 arc: "That's what a captain is. Don't hesitate. If you can't be decisive, who can we believe in?" And going back to the actions of Luffy and Sanji in the recent chapters, Luffy specifically was not being decisive. Specifically, he says this to his entire crew: "Let's ask Sanji." As a captain, Luffy should say, "I will decide." And we love Ichiro Oda. He drops those foreshadowing hits way before they ever become things in the story. This can be seen potentially by Zoro dropping these lines in the Water 7 arc, but potentially could be seen as soon as chapter 6 in the story, when Zoro said this: "If you do something that ends up in the way of my goal, I will have to cut your stomach open to say sorry." Has Oda planned this confrontation since the very beginning of One Piece? And so a lot of people point to Whiskey Peak as sort of what this line was foreshadowing, because Luffy and Zoro did fight in Whiskey Peak, because everyone got fed by the bounty hunters that were there, and then the bounty hunters went to go capture them. Zoro, however, was not fooled, killed everyone, or attacked everyone. While Luffy was sleeping, Luffy woke up to find all of the wonderful people who had fed him all cut down by Zoro and essentially attacked him. But all I really think that this arc revealed was just how willing Zoro was to fight Luffy if Luffy got in his way. The point is, guys, is that Zoro is not part of the Straw Hat Pirates specifically to make Luffy into the Pirate King. Zoro is part of the crew because he believes that Luffy will become the Pirate King. A lot of people use Thriller Bark as definitive evidence that Zoro will never betray Luffy, that Zoro would never leave the crew, because even in that scene we can see Kuma addresses it specifically: Zoro is willing to die for Luffy. A lot of people interpret it as Zoro saying that being the strongest swordsman comes secondary to making Luffy the Pirate King. But Zoro also said this in the very same arc: "Right now, there's no other way to save this crew. If I can't protect my captain, then my ambition means nothing." Basically, Zoro is intimating here that in order for him to become the greatest swordsman of the One Piece world, he needed Luffy. And in this dire situation in which there was literally no win, somebody must die, a head must be taken. In terms of Zoro's own ambition, it mattered not whether it was Luffy's head or his own that was taken. And by making it his own rather than Luffy's, he believes, I think, that he was saving the rest of the crew. Without Luffy, they are nothing. But this was merely Zoro's feelings at the time. After this, Sabaody happened, Marineford happened, Punk Hazard, and now Whole Cake Island has happened. Things could potentially change. Up until this point in the story, they had always won. But I think that the almost constant defeats are getting to Zoro. Zoro, unlike Luffy, has recognized the scope of their conflict. Zoro was skeptical of Luffy's leadership capabilities even before the events in Whole Cake Island. And afterwards, with Whole Cake Island essentially being near completion now, if Zoro comes to learn what took place there, I think that his doubts would only be further justified. I think there's an absolute ton of evidence which suggests Zoro is unhappy, and he will have a conflict again with Luffy in the near future of the story. And based on what Zoro said in the Water 7 arc, I think that this disagreement will culminate in Zoro temporarily leaving the Straw Hat crew. But of course, as with all things related to One Piece, he will eventually join back. Luffy will earn him back to his side, and I suspect a good part which would get Zoro back in the crew is Luffy actually taking the New World seriously, as I sort of intimated and hinted at in my Luffy's Greatest Challenge video. But yeah, guys, that's about it. But before I move on, I do want to announce that I do have a Discord server now. Really cool place to hang out and chill. Fun place to be for anyone who watches my videos. And for sure, you guys will see me around there if you decide to join. Link for it will be in the description. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree and why. Share your thought. Share this video if you like it and you want other people to watch it as well. I personally think that this is a must-watch video, but my opinion may not equal everyone else's. Like the video if you liked this video. Subscribe for more One Piece content, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.